And unfortunately, whether it's a former partner or whether it's a family member or someone who is in a cult, one of the common tactics is weaponizing the court system.
Americans are often fascinated by cults. Understanding the strange phenomenon is the mission of today's guest. We welcome Paulette J. Buchanan to Saving America to explore this important topic in her recent book.
And this is where, when I spoke with the civil rights attorney so many years ago, she said, you got to write a book about this. She said, there are a lot of problems in the court system, and they're not addressing these problems, and they're opening the door wide for people to sue others. It's called pro se or self-represented. Many of them do not hire attorneys. You know, the big cults like Scientology, they hire attorneys. But others, they just file pro se or self-represented for a few $100s. They can cause you multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage to try to defend yourself, because you do need an attorney to defend yourself.
Right. And I wanted to slip in here our kind of transition from what you experienced to our second question, which is, how did the legal system fail you, and what can be done better in the legal system today?
Yeah, in talking with both judges and attorneys, they see that there are problems. Now, the whole idea of pro se, basically self-represented, the whole way that you do that, you can file a lawsuit. It's based in Old English law. So you'll see this in Canada, New Zealand, the UK, obviously, and here in America. We have our laws based on Old English law. And the principle in theory is great. You know, Farmer Brown had his chicken stolen by Farmer Smith, and he goes to a judge, and he doesn't have to hire somebody to represent him, but he goes to a judge and presents the evidence, has witnesses, and he asks the judge to have Farmer Smith give him his chicken back. That's a good principle. You shouldn't have to have a go-between, but the complexities of our court system and the tactics and maneuvers of pro se litigants who basically, they can get away with bloody murder. We've had attorneys tell us that judges will bend over backwards for pro se litigants because they give them the benefit of the doubt. They know they're not skilled attorneys, so they let some things slide. But the problem is that really fair toward the other party, who may have an attorney? There was only one lawsuit out of 9 in multiple states, state and federal court, that we represented ourselves. It was an easy enough case because it was out of jurisdiction, but we presented a boatload of information to the judge, and she shot my brother's. It was a second lawsuit against us. She shot it down. But the other cases, again, he filed extremely defamatory, horrible statements that would clearly try to prejudice the court against us. And we had to hire an attorney to basically cut him off at the pass. But the process needs to be better. And this is how it needs to be better. In previous generation of judges, and there are still some judges who do this, they look at the filings of a pro se litigant comes in. And sometimes they have a good working relationship with their court clerks, and the court clerks can trust them to say, Judge, look at this, get a load of this one. And the judge will right there on the spot. It's called a sua sponte. It's from the Latin, that basically the judge takes his own initiative or her own initiative without any motions from any parties. And they say, no, I am not going to allow this meritless. I mean, on the face of it, there's no relief that can be granted. There's no claim that's legitimate. This is clearly intended to harass people, and they will shut it down right there. They don't even give it a docket number. That's what we need to have happening now. And I think our law schools really need to be addressing this issue of those who weaponize the court system. You know, here in Tennessee, we have every county's court has what's called pro se day, in which they only hear cases brought by all of the pro se litigants. And I can only imagine the migraine that people get, and the judges get, and the court staff get. I talked with court clerks. They have been literally begging the judges, would you please screen these lawsuits? There are a number of pro se litigants who bring valid lawsuits, but there are a great number of those that are clearly trying to weaponize the system, the court system, against their victims. And, you know, you think about it. I had one time a protective order against my brother. A lot of other victims have protective orders against their stalkers. And again, it's called stalking through the courts for a reason. But think about this. This whole court process requires you to be in the presence of your stalker mere feet away from you. We've had court staff in the cases where my brother was involved with that. We had court staff, they had to call out for security because my brother's behavior was so outrageous and alarming. And so we need to correct this, definitely.
When you had those situations, first of all, did the courts ever rule in favor of your brothers?
Absolutely not. Not once.
Okay. Did you get awards of your legal fees against them?
Yes, absolutely did. In fact, we used Connecticut's vexatious litigant law in federal court to get treble damages or triple damages.
And were you able to collect them at that point?
Not one penny.
And so you have a judgment against them for these amounts because you, of course, paid your attorneys in cash, right?
Right, exactly. And we have, importantly, we were finally able to get injunctions. Both federal and a lot of state courts have laws that penalize abusive litigants, or what are sometimes in the old terminology, like Connecticut has, they call them vexatious litigants.
Yes.
But they're abusive. They're abusing the court system. And so thankfully, in 2018, early 2018, we contacted our legislators about the, oh my goodness, I think that was the 4th lawsuit he filed against us. And there were other victims who were stepping forward, and we contacted our legislators. They informed us of this bill that was on the table in the Tennessee legislature. It's called the Abusive Civil Action Law or bill at that time. And we urged our legislators, you got to support this because we're in this situation now. And so retroactively, our case was, it fell under that. When the governor signed that bill into law, it was used retroactively for any existing cases in which there was an abusive litigant abusing the court system to cause damage to their victims and filing meritless lawsuits. And sure enough, we got a permanent, as it turned out, injunction against them on the state level in Tennessee. And we now have a permanent injunction against them in federal court. But it took 9 lawsuits. It should have only taken 1. You know, I mean, any judge, that just it. I think a lot of it goes to having respect for the court system. We need to have attorneys and judges, especially, to have respect for our court system. It needs to work fairly for all parties. A lot of people don't realize this. You get a judgment. Well, the court does not enforce that judgment. Sometimes you can ask the court to make, have them make payments, but that is such a rare thing. It just rarely doesn't happen. And so we really do need some sensitivity by the judges to do this. We've been working with our legislators still. We worked with an attorney who's a liaison between the Tennessee Bar Association and the legislature here in Tennessee. She flat out told us, it's like, judges don't like to change things. And she said, your best bet as victims is to write to the court system, to write to these judges and tell them your experience, and just tell them, please start reviewing these cases. We, again, have talked with some judges. They do. They say, you know what? I see these things on, every now and again, they come across my desk. It's like, nope, I'm shutting this down. Those are the kinds of judges we need.
Well, that sounds good. Paulette, our time is running short, but I did want to ask you a third question. If a person is experiencing harassment or stalking that's related to a cult, give us a quick action plan. What should they do first, second, and third?
The first thing you do want to do, and you as an attorney know this, you gather up your evidence. If it's in a text message, if it's in email, whatever it is. And sometimes, of course, we have our cell phones. So if they're actually in your face doing things, if they're online, whatever it is, you make record of that and you report it to your police. Now, a lot of police, they don't like to deal with this kind of stuff, and they'll tell you, well, get a protective order. Well, contact an attorney. Okay, fine. Maybe you want to do those things. Keep in mind, protective orders really are not enforced very well. They just aren't. And that is a real problem with our protective order process. So that's the best thing you can do, is record everything and make record of it. Make record of your complaint to the police, because a lot of police don't even like to take record of your complaint. You make sure they take record of your complaint.
Wonderful. Paulette J. Buchanan, thank you so much for bringing this fascinating information and something that's not talked about very much at the present time. How can our audience get more information about you and your book?
Well, I have 3 websites. They can contact me. I have contact forms on all of my websites. The first one is for my book, www.fightingforjusticebook.com. The second website is www.stopabusivelawsuits.com. And the third one is www.stopreligiousfrauds.com.
This is Dr. David D. Shine for Saving America. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite platform.